China, chai, charcha and conflict. BJP CCP talks raise Congress's ire. Talks held amid the Shaksgam face-off. Red eye to red carpet mocks Congress.
हमें बताइए कि इन क्लोज डोर मीटिंग्स में क्या हुआ? भारत के कितने हितों का समझौता करके आप आए हैं?
BJP counters it as a bid to politicize.
इसकी नींव जो है 50 की सदी में 60 में जब पंडित नेहरू जी की सरकार थी, उस समय क्या क्या हुआ सबको जानकारी है, तो कांग्रेस पार्टी इस पे बयानबाजी ना करे.
India rejects Dragon's Shaksgam claim.
We have never recognized the so-called China-Pakistan boundary agreement that happened in 1963.
It's the Shaksgam standoff that meets Delhi diplomacy, and it's a big focus on India first.
Good evening. The Congress party today launched a frontal attack on the ruling BJP at the centre, saying instead of showing red eyes to China, the government is actually rolling out the red carpet for the Chinese. And this after a delegation of the Communist Party of China called on the RSS General Secretary Dattatreya Hoshmale at the RSS headquarters in Keshav Kunj in Delhi. This meeting is reported to have lasted for about an hour. The Chinese delegation had met and held consultations over advancing inter-party communication with the BJP yesterday. Our political bureau gets you our top story.
हमें बताइए कि इन क्लोज डोर मीटिंग्स में क्या हुआ? भारत के कितने हितों का समझौता करके आप आए हैं?
इसकी नींव जो है 50 की सदी में 60 में जब पंडित नेहरू जी की सरकार थी, उस समय क्या क्या हुआ सबको जानकारी है, तो कांग्रेस पार्टी इस पे बयानबाजी ना करे.
A major political storm has erupted after the BJP hosted a delegation of the Chinese Communist Party in Delhi. Just as India and China face off over the Shaksgam Valley. The Chinese delegation led by Vice Minister Sun Haiyan met senior BJP leaders at party headquarters. This marks the first high-level political engagement between BJP and CPC since the Galwan clashes in 2020. CCP leaders also met RSS General Secretary Dattatreya Hoshmale at RSS headquarters. The closed-door meeting lasted 30 minutes. Sources say it was only a courtesy call held at the CCP's request with no formal agenda. The Congress has gone on the offensive, saying China is pushing fresh territorial claims in the Shaksgam Valley even as BJP leaders are engaging Beijing's ruling party and questioned whether Galwan, Ladakh, Arunachal and Shaksgam were raised during the talks.
लगातार भारत को नुकसान चीन की तरफ से पहुंचता है. इन बैठकों की वजह से पहुंचता है या इन बैठकों के बावजूद पहुंचता है? कल बैठक हुई और कुछ घंटों में शक्सगाम घाटी पर उन्होंने दावा ठोक दिया. हमें बताइए कि इन क्लोज डोर मीटिंग्स में क्या हुआ? भारत के कितने हितों का समझौता करके आप आए हैं?
China is building infrastructure in Shaksgam Valley under China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Pakistan has illegally ceded 5,180 square kilometers of this area to China, a move India has never recognized.
We have never recognized the so-called China-Pakistan boundary agreement that happened in 1963. We do not recognize the so-called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor either, which passes through Indian territory.
But China has rejected India's claim, insisting that the territory belongs to China.
首先，你提到的领土属于中国领土。
It is fully justified for China to conduct infrastructure construction on its own territory. China and Pakistan in the 1960s signed a boundary agreement and delimited the boundary between the two countries, which is the right of China and Pakistan as sovereign countries. The China-Pakistan boundary agreement and the CPEC do not affect China's position on the Kashmir issue, and the position remains unchanged.
发展和改善民生。
As China tightens its grip on Shaksgam and India pushes back, the BJP CPC meeting has now become a major political flashpoint in New Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today.
So Shaksgam Valley is actually Indian territory, and we'll just show it to you on a map. It is part of Jammu and Kashmir, illegally occupied by Pakistan since 1947 and then ceded to China in 1963. So the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson is lying literally through her teeth when they claim that it's either sovereign territory or it's a decision that's taken between two sovereign countries. It's Indian territory, illegally in Pakistani occupation and illegally given to China in 1963. It still remains Indian territory. So Pakistan had ceded. So on that map, we'll show you the Shaksgam Valley. It's about 5,180 square kilometers of Indian territory, which Pakistan ceded to China. But I'll get you more on that story, and we'll have that conversation in greater detail, because a lot of Chinese activity is happening in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which incidentally, Pakistan, a part of it, it tries to call its northern areas, trying to show that it's different from Jammu and Kashmir. It isn't. It is a part of Jammu and Kashmir. Northern areas, that area of Gilgit and Baltistan is part of Ladakh. It's Indian territory, illegally in Pakistani control since 1947, and the Shaksgam Valley ceded in 1963. But I have breaking news coming in, and the Congress that was targeting the BJP could be perhaps on a sticky wicket here. Now, sources are telling India Today that senior Congress leader, former Law Minister, former External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid, who's currently heading Congress's Foreign Affairs Department, met the same Chinese Communist Party delegation earlier today. This again was at the Chinese Communist Party's request. This meeting, as some argue, puts the Congress perhaps on the defensive in its attack on the BJP and Chinese Communist Party delegation level talks that were held yesterday and with the RSS earlier today. This meeting with Salman Khurshid came just hours after Pawan Kheda accused the BJP of giving, in the Congress's words, Lal Salam to China. And he also questioned the secrecy around the BJP talks with the Chinese Communist Party. But the Congress leaders are now saying Salman Khurshid's interaction was only a courtesy call. It was only a goodwill visit. It had been cleared by the Ministry of External Affairs. But are there mixed signals coming from within the party? I quickly want to cut across to India Today's ace correspondent Mosmi Singh. She covers the Congress party. Mosmi, give us details of this meeting between Salman Khurshid and the Chinese delegation. And does it send out a signal that there are mixed signals coming out of the Congress? Does it blunt the Congress's attack?
Oh, absolutely, Gaurav. You know, because in the morning, Salman Khurshid, the former Foreign Affairs Minister, who also heads the Foreign Affairs Department of the Congress, he met this delegation at the behest of the CPC, apparently as a goodwill gesture, as a courtesy call. And then hours later, we had Pawan Khera slamming the BJP, saying that the CPC was right there at the BJP headquarters. And is it BJP Chini Bhai Bhai policy that PM Modi and the BJP is propagating? And did they ask tough questions to the CPC leaders when they met the BJP leaders? And what transpired in the meeting? So this is ironically just, the double standards perhaps, or dual speak by the Congress, because your department head also meets the same delegation. There cannot be different dipstick measures for both the delegations meeting right there. And within the Congress circles, many feel that these are part of protocols that are followed by political parties when they come to India, foreign parties when they come to India. They generally do that. They meet the ruling BJP, ruling party members and also opposition party members.
Mosby, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. For the moment, Mosby Singh in Delhi. Many thanks. So Shaksgam Valley is actually Indian territory, and we'll just show it to you on a map. It is part of Jammu and Kashmir, illegally occupied by Pakistan since 1947 and then ceded to China in 1963. So the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson is lying literally through her teeth when they claim that it's either sovereign territory or it's a decision that's taken between two sovereign countries. It's Indian territory, illegally in Pakistani occupation and illegally given to China in 1963. It still remains Indian territory. So Pakistan had ceded. So on that map, we'll show you the Shaksgam Valley. It's about 5,180 square kilometers of Indian territory, which Pakistan ceded to China. But I'll get you more on that story, and we'll have that conversation in greater detail, because a lot of Chinese activity is happening in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which incidentally, Pakistan, a part of it, it tries to call its northern areas, trying to show that it's different from Jammu and Kashmir. It isn't. It is a part of Jammu and Kashmir. Northern, areas, that area of Gilgit and Baltistan is part of Ladakh. It's Indian territory, illegally in Pakistani control since 1947, and the Shaksgam Valley ceded in 1963. But I have breaking news coming in, and the Congress that was targeting the BJP could be perhaps on a sticky wicket here. Now, sources are telling India Today that senior Congress leader, former Law Minister, former External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid, who's currently heading Congress's Foreign Affairs Department, met the same Chinese Communist Party delegation earlier today. This again was at the Chinese Communist Party's request. This meeting, as some argue, puts the Congress perhaps on the defensive in its attack on the BJP and Chinese Communist Party delegation level talks that were held yesterday and with the RSS earlier today. This meeting with Salman Khurshid came just hours after Pawan Kheda accused the BJP of giving, in the Congress's words, Lal Salam to China. And he also questioned the secrecy around the BJP talks with the Chinese Communist Party. But the Congress leaders are now saying Salman Khurshid's interaction was only a courtesy call. It was only a goodwill visit. It had been cleared by the Ministry of External Affairs. But are there mixed signals coming from within the party? I quickly want to cut across to India Today's ace correspondent Mosmi Singh. She covers the Congress party. Mosmi, give us details of this meeting between Salman Khurshid and the Chinese delegation, and does it send out a signal that there are mixed signals coming out of the Congress? Does it blunt the Congress's attack?
Oh, absolutely, Gaurav. Because in the morning, Salman Khurshid, the former Foreign Affairs Minister, who also heads the Foreign Affairs Department of the Congress, he met this delegation at the behest of the CPC, apparently as a goodwill gesture, as a courtesy call. And then hours later, we had Pawan Khera slamming the BJP, saying that the CPC was right there at the BJP headquarters. And is it BJP Chini Bhai Bhai policy that PM Modi and the BJP is propagating? And did they ask tough questions to the CPC leaders when they met the BJP leaders? And what transpired in the meeting? So this is ironically just, the double standards perhaps, or dual speak by the Congress, because your department head also meets the same delegation. There cannot be different dipstick measures for both the delegations meeting right there. And, within the Congress circles, many feel that, these are part of protocols that are followed by political parties when they come to India, foreign parties when they come to India. They generally do that. They meet the ruling BJP, ruling party members and also opposition party members.
Mosby, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. For the moment, Mosby Singh in Delhi. Many thanks. So the Congress that had come out all guns blazing, asking why engage with China when Beijing and Rawalpindi were operating together during Operation Sindur, and the fact that China now claims Shaksgam Valley. It already controlled the Shaksgam Valley, but now is officially claiming it as their own territory. But is the Congress on a sticky wicket, equally sticky wicket, with Salman Khurshid meeting the same Chinese delegation? Joining me on India First is Nikhat Abbas, representing the Congress party. Raghav Awasthi is an advocate and a political analyst with us on the show. General Sanjay Meston, he's served extensively in Jammu and Kashmir and in Ladakh, joins us on the show. Professor Shrikant Kondapalli is a professor of China Studies at the prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor Brahma, Chellaney, one of the foremost voices on strategy in India, former advisor to India's National Security Council. Gentlemen and ladies, welcome. Nikhat Abbas, the Congress attacked the BJP, but Salman Khurshid apparently had the meeting with the same delegation. Does this actually blunt the Congress attack?
Good evening, Gaurav, to you, my co-panelist, and your viewers of India Today tonight. Gaurav, an opposition leader, the opposition party's leader meeting these delegation, and the government, the BJP party who's in the power right now meeting, is completely different. Because like we said, that BJP in public says that it's showing the Ladakh to China, while we claim that it actually is offering the Lal Salam to China. And why do we say that? Is because that BJP has been out and campaigning that the Chinese products should be banned, wherein the Chinese Communist Party is welcomed at the BJP headquarters with the red carpet. I mean, this is the same Chinese Communist Party, like we remind the Bharatiya Janata Party, who openly claims that Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin are very much a part of China. We want to understand that has the Narendra Modi government and PM Narendra Modi himself has surrendered to Chinese about this claim that yes, Arunachal Pradesh and Aksai Chin are very much a part of China, but not India. Because as far as we remember, after the Galwan clash, when 20 soldiers were martyred, the Prime Minister of our country, PM Narendra Modi, has already weakened the position of negotiation for us by claiming that there was no intrusion. That please tell us that how our 20 soldiers, Indian soldiers, were martyred. Operation Sindur, the world has seen
pertinent points you've raised. Let me bring in Raghav Awasthi point by point. Raghav Awasthi, instead of showing red eyes to China, the BJP is rolling out the red carpet despite the Pakistan-China tango during Operation Sindur. Is this a softening of stance, a surrendering our policy, is the question that the Congress party asks. Your take on this, sir?
Gaurav, not at all. I don't agree with my good and Ms. Abbas. As a matter of fact, the Congress party, although I don't want to bring political mudslinging into this, they have a long history aligned with the Communist Party of India, Marxist in Bengal for China, but let's not get into that. First of it is not a government-to-government visit, it is a party-to-party visit. And political parties across the world are free to learn each other's respective experience. Having said, I have a very important point to make here.
Mr. Awasthi, give me 30 seconds as we try and reestablish that audio link with you. It's a little garbled at our end. Professor Chellaney, is this back to Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai optics despite Doklam in 2017, Galwan in 2020, Operation Sindur, Chinese working in tandem with Pakistanis and the Dragon Dare on Shaksgam? Do you think this weakens India's position? The fact that from G to G, now you're moving to party?
You raise an important question, Gaurav. After every major act of Chinese aggression, it doesn't take very long for India to drift towards appeasement again. It happened after Doklam. There was Doklam standoff, then there was disengagement from Doklam. Soon thereafter, the Chinese came in and occupied Doklam Plateau. But then what followed were the Wuhan summit and the summit in Chennai, in Mahabalipuram. So we are seeing a pattern being repeated again and again. We had these encroachments in Eastern Ladakh. Then there was, for 4 years, there was no real movement on the bilateral front. And then there was a thaw in October 2024. since then, without the Chinese going back, without they actually going back on their own resolve or their own positions on the ground, we decided to mend fences with China. Now again, we're seeing this. We in May, just 8 months ago, the Indian Vice Army Chief said China was the third party in that conflict, right? It came from the Indian Army Vice Chief.
Deputy Chief General Rahul Singh. Go on, sir.
Yes. And then just months later, 8 months later, we are seeing this new bonhomie. It's the CCP being received by the BJP, by the Congress, the fact that China's trade surplus with India continues to surge, all that does weaken our position, Gaurav. It undermines our position, in fact.
It undermines our position is what you say. Sir, you referred to what General Rahul Singh said, and for the benefit of our viewers, here's a 3-star general of the Indian Army in uniform giving ground realities about how the tango worked between China and Pakistan during Operation Sindur, and of course Turkey, but Turkey is a different story for the moment. Listen into General Singh.
Firstly, one border, two adversaries. So we saw Pakistan one side, but adversaries were two, and if I would say actually 4 or 3 actually. So Pakistan was the front face. We had China providing all possible support, and it's no surprise because if you were to look at statistics, in the last 5 years, 81% of the military hardware that Pakistan is getting is all Chinese, 81% of that. So it's no surprise. And China, of course, the good old dictum, killed by a borrowed knife, 36 stratagems that China talks about, killed by a borrowed knife. So he would rather use the neighbor to cause pain than getting involved in the mud-slinging match on the northern border. So that is what he's seen.
Let me also bring in Professor Kondapalli on this. Professor, your take on the engagement post Kazan. We were reporting from Kazan and from Tianjin, the summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Is there a thaw? Is there a reason for a thaw? Or is this change coming about because of, is this the Trump effect?
2-3 issues, Gaurav. One is the International Liaison Department of the Communist Party. It is mainly used for United Front Work Department, which basically fans out to the rest of the world and invites the political leaders from across the globe, including the RSS, BJP, Congress, CPI, CPM, Janata Dal, and other, including Aam Aadmi Party and others. So they invite all of these political leaders to China, and they also make a reciprocal visit to these countries and to these political parties' headquarters. So that is to influence the public opinion and political opinion in these countries. So this is called, Mao Zedong called this as the magic weapon. One of the 3 magic weapons. One is the Communist Party itself. Second is the PLA. Third is the United Front Work Department. So they fan out to the rest of the world in terms of the political leaders and interactions with them. So this is one aspect. So they conducted this visit to India and visited these places that we just discussed. The second aspect that you're mentioning is about the normalization. We began, as Brahma Chellaney mentioned just now, October 2024. We had the core commander level meetings accepted, and we had disengagement and patrolling. But we have not conducted the de-escalation and de-induction process. In the meanwhile, as you mentioned, Gaurav, there is the Kazan meeting, the Tianjin meeting, and the other meetings, External Affairs Minister, the Raksha Mantri, and others have visited China in the run-up in the last 1.5 years. So this is what we can say normalization. including the visit of the Communist Party Liaison Department, International Liaison Department's delegation. So the two tracks are happening. One is border stability, which is very slow, but overall stability exists right now, even though they have not de-escalated.
Or de-inducted, let alone de-induct. Okay, which is the point I was coming to, that are we moving too fast on one track, which is the political engagement and the economic engagement, and not as fast as we should actually on post-disengagement, de-induction and de-escalation? General Miston, is there an apprehension that we could once again be lulled into this Hindi Chini bhai bhai? Or is this directly the Donald Trump effect? It's a tactical readjustment given the very challenging and changing global scenario.
Gaurav, in all likelihood, there could be all possibilities, but I will just go to the crux of the problem. See, if we assess the ground realities with China, what is the basic problem? The basic problem is the unresolved borders, and since then, 1962 onwards, we have had conflicts, and of course, so many problems we have had, Galwan, etc., and we continue to have that. And therefore, a large number of joint working groups were formed somewhere in 1980s, and till date, what was the issue? The issue is any government of the day, their intent is that peace and tranquility should be there all along the LAC. But the main issue is, have the borders been resolved till date? No. In fact, 1899 onwards, since the Ardagh-Johnson line, with the Chinese maps have also recognized that way back, the entire Kashmir territory was the southwest of the Ardagh-Johnson line. And those are the issues today which the governments of India, any government, they need to have some kind of discussion on this, because that is a historical backdrop, and the Chinese maps way back up to 1930s have recognized this territory, including the Beijing Chinese Atlas and the Postal Chinese Atlas. These are all on the internet also available. So my point is, if we now all these talks, whatever meetings we are having, yes, as Professor Shrikant also highlighted, this is their strategy of meeting all party work, all parties.
No, that's also a weapon, he says. It's also a weapon that China uses. And Nikhat Abbas, the Congress is criticizing the BJP, saying gal baiya, or putting your hand on the shoulder of the adversary or a friend, as if they're great friends or close friendship with China. Records show, madam, Rahul Gandhi met the Chinese Communist Party delegation on the 5th of January 2018. Chinese leaders have met Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi on June 6, 2019. Should that be looked at as galbaiya? Or when the BJP alleges that the Chinese ambassador sought a pass to see off Rahul Gandhi for the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, as Sambit Patra put it. So are these double standards even of the Congress Party, madam?
Gaurav, let's not let BJP hide behind the history. Let's, confront them with the reality. We are just questioning that if at all you have to meet the CCP, what we are asking is just come up with the reality that what have you discussed? Did you discuss the border violations with that party? Did you discuss the trade deficit, which is rising for India with China more each day? Did you discuss about that imbalance? Did you confront China that why is that they keep supporting Pakistan and Pakistani terrorism against India? Did you discuss that China should be opening the market for the Indian exporters, and more or less we should always be talking about the well-being of both the countries and their camaraderie? But we want to know that why is that China is constantly blocking the critical rare earth minerals and specialized fertilizers, which is hurting
so very specific points that you raised, Raghav Avasthi, on 12th of January 2026, because I want to raise a hot button issue. China claimed that Shaksgam is the territory that belongs to China. Territory that India very rightly says is ours. It was illegally ceded by Pakistan to China in 1963. Now, this meeting that's taking place, whether with the BJP or the RSS or the Congress Party, as an Indian, does it not send out a wrong message, wrong optics? China claims Indian territory as theirs, and here we are all having very cordial meetings. Are these issues being raised, or is it to be raised only at government-to-government level?
Incursions in Ladakh, Gaurav. We need to understand that why is that government is hiding and trying to surrender. Narendra Modi is completely surrendering in front of China is my question. What kind of a face do you want to show to our country? You're the Prime Minister, not a bargaining campaigner for China or US or tariffs. You need to take a stand for the
fair
people
enough.
of our country.
Raghav Avasthi, respond quickly, sir. Go on.
I think the problem is that as far as policies are concerned, we are now living in a dangerous world. And there is this attitude countries across the world had before Donald Trump on interventionism that if something happens, if there is a dispute with their neighbors, etc., then the Americans could be counted on to a veto, whatever. But now what is happening is that India specifically has the trend aversion to those United States. The Pakistani Asim is being winged and timed in Washington DC. So we also have to look at other options. And I think it only makes
My
sense to
apologies, we
read that
still
there is
haven't been able to set right that audio conversation, that audio link with Raghav Avasthi. We'll try and sort that out in just a moment. But Professor Chellaney, there already is a G to G engagement, a government to government engagement between India and China. And in your view, is there any justification right now at this stage to expand it to political party, people to people, without the situation on ground coming back to normal at the LAC? Or will this help bring that situation back to normal?
You raise an important question. This is happening because China is pressing it. Ships. It's their demand, just the way they demanded that flights be resumed between the two countries. These are the various demands of Beijing. Beijing has successfully managed to press these demands. India has acceded to those demands. Even the BJP, CCP, BJP equation, this informal relationship that is now emerging, it's at CCP's instance. The question is, are we eroding our leverage by agreeing to all these things? The fact is that even as we seek to re-engage China is actually stepping up pressure on India. It's upping the ante. We've seen that with Shaksgam Valley. For the first time ever, they have stated explicitly that they regard Shaksgam Valley as Chinese territory. This is a departure from their earlier statements. In fact, when you go back to the 1963 agreement, under which Pakistan ceded Shaksgam Valley to China, the Chinese position since then has been that this area will ultimately be settled in discussions between Pakistan and India. And now they're saying Shaksgam Valley is Chinese territory. Or look at what they're doing with Arunachal Pradesh. How are they upping the ante? By syncretizing the names of places in Arunachal Pradesh.
Yes.
Or what they're doing in Eastern Ladakh. For example, the buffer zones that came up in certain areas, these were temporary measures. They came up largely on Indian territory. In other words, we have retreated further back by creating these buffers. Today, there's no discussion on the buffers. Then more recently, there was this agreement on Devsang and Demchok. For the first time, we have accepted Devsang as disputed territory. In other words, we have agreed that both countries have a right to patrol Devsang. Now, this is a departure from our old stance that Devsang is Indian territory. That if the Chinese were to come in the past when they tried to come in, they were challenged. But now we have agreed formally through an agreement that each side will be able to patrol. The only condition is that each side will provide advance notification to the other side about these patrols. So we have receded again in terms of our own position. There has been no debate in the country on such an important development.
So let me bring in Professor Kondapalli. Is this then the new normal with China? And is this because of the Donald Trump factor, or are we looking at an opportunity to move forward and address the LAC issue beyond disengagement to de-escalation, towards ultimate de-induction? Or are we being too hopeful if we think that there could also be delineation on the map?
Well, it may be true that China is striving for softening up of the Indian position by such visits. But we have seen Foreign Minister Wang Yi visiting Delhi in August. We had an agreement in the 23rd Special Representative meeting that there will be delimitation talks soon. We do not know when exactly, because they have to finalize the expert group and the working group related to the delimitation process. They use the word delimitation instead of defining or demarcation. These are three steps: defining, delimiting, demarcation. So they use the word delimitation, which suggests that there is some discussion happening in the second phase of the territorial dispute. So that is left to the special representative meetings, the border dispute, that needs to be resolved by that mechanism. In the meanwhile, we also have the larger issue of 500% tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. So the Tianjin meeting is to counter such unilateral positions of the United States. So this track is also happening simultaneously, that we are in a situation where we need to also cater for the tariff-related problems. Of course, the Chinese are not supporting us in this, even though they did criticize the US tariffs on India, but they made a separate deal with the United States for 10% tariffs because of the rare earth metal advantage that they have. We have a problem with the trade deficits, of course, with China. That also need to be resolved. The meetings that we have had so far with the BJP, RSS, Congress, I'm sure some of these issues would have been raised, but more in polite manner.
Fair enough. So, the Trump factor, before I bring in General Meston, Professor Chellaney, is that the reason why India may have had a different stance compared to its stance earlier, post-Galwan?
Well, Trump took office in January last year.
Yes.
But India's outreach to China preceded Trump's return to the White House.
Kazan,
it began
yes.
with Prime Minister Modi meeting with President Xi Jinping and seeking to mend the bilateral relationship. Of course, we can say that to some extent, the strains in US-India relations began during the Biden presidency. It was Biden who played the various cards against India, the Khalistan card against India. He had these two indictments that were designed to target the Modi government. It was the Biden administration that orchestrated the regime change in Bangladesh. It was the Biden administration that resumed the U.S. embrace of Pakistan, including helping Pakistan secure the IMF bailout. Then it was the Biden administration that modernized Pakistan's F-16 fleet under a $450 million deal. So clearly, there were strains in US-India relations during the Biden era, and Trump has accelerated the deterioration in the US-India relations. But
which would bring me to my point.
We should keep one thing in mind, Gaurav, which is just one line, which is that the India-China issue, especially China's aggressive behavior towards India, has nothing to do with the US policy towards India. It's the new hardline approach of the US towards India, or even what Biden administration was doing vis-a-vis India. The fact is that for many years now, we have seen that under successive governments, that China makes aggressive moves, undertakes aggressive actions, and then we drift towards appeasement ultimately, it's happened under
is it also
successive
because
governments.
neither US nor China, no country in the world wants India also to grow and become a superpower? They want us all to remain subservient either to China or to the United States of America. And in case we were to rise, it does not suit them, either China or America. General Meston, militarily, your assessment post Galwan 2020, the manner in which China is upgrading infrastructure and resources in Tibet and Xinjiang, doesn't that indicate whatever softening of stance that we may be watching tactically right now, strategically, China is building up in a big way all across Tibet?
Yeah, very true, Gaurav. China is building up in a big way, not only against India, it's also building up in Western Bhutan. When I commanded my brigade in Nathula, I remember they had intruded quite a bit in Western Bhutan. That is their strategy. But I would just like to highlight, Gaurav, one thing. The present ambassador of China to India, Mr. Zhu Fihong, he was also the ambassador in Afghanistan when I was the defense attaché. And I interacted with him number of times informally, and personalities do matter. I find his personality that way. I think I would perhaps give him the credit that he is doing all this kind of diplomacy, because nevertheless, when I used to interact with him, I think one thing we sometimes used to talk about, even military cooperation, etc. And he was quite open about it and what we can do jointly in Afghanistan. So if you just Google and see...
A moment, I have breaking news coming in. I have to go to this big story that's coming in from the United States of America, and that's a big statement that's coming in from US President Donald Trump. He's addressing Iranian patriots. He says, keep protesting. Big statement coming in from US President Donald Trump to Iran. He's telling Iranian people on the streets who are carrying out protests against Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and Masoud Pezeshkian, the supreme leader and the president, he's telling the Iranian people, keep up with your protests. Take over your institutions. Big statement again coming in. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. President Trump then goes on to say, I have cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killings of protesters stop. And then he goes all caps to write, help is on its way, MEGA. President Donald J. Trump. I want to once again play out what President Trump has told Iranian people. Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the killers and your abusers. They will pay a big price. I've cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killings of protesters stops. Help is on its way, President Donald Trump. Now, just a couple of days ago, you had Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. He said, we are ready for war, but we keep a door open for peace, or words to that effect. That clearly indicates while Iran was reaching out to the United States for dialogue, at the same time telling their people that they are ready for war, there is some movement that's also being reported at the Al Udeid base. There is some movement, US military hardware, especially aircraft. According to some reports, there's some movement seen there. What does all of this indicate? I want to quickly cut across and bring in India Today's Pranay Upadhyay on this huge developing story. Pranay, what President Trump writes right now, of course, it was on the 2nd of January, he said we are locked and loaded. But now all indications are that America is thinking about being locked and loaded. So far, they were saying maybe a cyber attack, maybe there would be more sanctions. Sanctions have been put in place, but what else, Pranay?
Gaurav, this is a full rollout of President Donald Trump's maximum pressure policy on Iran. We are witnessing that how President Donald Trump is regularly giving out these indications that the military options are on his table. We have, in last 24 hours, we have seen a social media post by President Donald Trump and a statement by White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt clearly indicating that the United States exercise diplomacy as a first option, but President Donald Trump keeps every option on his table, including the military option, and he is carefully examining all the options. He have been given options intentions. And therefore, the President Donald Trump has given out this message directly addressing to the Iranian protesters that they should keep on protesting, take over the institutions. We know that President Donald Trump is, exercising this maximum pressure policy on one count. He is giving all these indications. On the other side, he has,
But this is a big statement, statement that the American president makes where he says, keep protesting, take over your institutions. So this is actually inciting them to take over institutions, and the government in Iran is quite strong. Yesterday there was a huge protest in favor of President Masoud Pezeshkian and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and this is a theocracy, a very strong religious state. America may call them zombies, but your assessment of the pro-Iran establishment protests that took place not just at the Inqilab Chowk in Tehran, but in Isfahan and so many other, Mashdad and other parts of Iran?
Gaurav, we have seen series of protests since 2017 onward. We have seen Masa and Amini's protest in 2022. We have seen many protests in Iran. But as an institution, as establishment, as IRGC structure or Basid structure in Iran, Iran has well-rooted structures of these religious and the establishment or the militaries or IRGC structures in Iran. So therefore, it is not easy. Iran is not Venezuela. Iran is not a small country. And therefore, it is taking that much of time. And that's why President Donald Trump wants to give it yet another blow. We have to see that, how far he can stretch, how far he has to go, because, bombings cannot change regime. That's not the thing. And if US has to put boots on ground in Iran, that is going to change the entire dynamic, and that will be another long war for Iran.
Iran has long-range missiles. Iran was able to break through
the
Israel's Iron Dome system. So Iran is no pushover. Iran is no Venezuela. Iran has a very strong armed forces. They have a navy, they have an air force, maybe a little obsolete, but their missile, their drones are being used by Russia
we have to remember that the Strait of Hormuz as well. Iran has a strategic location and they can block Strait of Hormuz.
Absolutely. So Iran clearly is no pushover, and Iran has the capabilities to hit more than close to 19 American bases in the region. Whether those bases are in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in Iraq, all of those bases could well be vulnerable to Iranian missiles, and Iran has said so in as many words. I have more breaking news coming in, and this after President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on nations trading with Iran. Top government sources are telling India today that the additional 25% tariffs by the United States, at least on India, will have a minimal impact. India's total trade with Iran is about 1.6 billion. At least that's what the trade was last year. In 2025, it's predominantly in basmati rice, in tea, in sugar, in pharmaceuticals. So India believes that this is, very limited impact, the additional 25%. But are we looking at an escalation? Are we looking at war? Okay, I have Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, former Director General of Defence Intelligence Agency, joining me on this broadcast. He, of course, was to join us on that other story on the Army Chief on Operation Sindur. But General Dhillon, if I may take a question, this breaking news, President Trump is telling Iranian patriots continue to protest, take over institutions. In your view, sir, in your military assessment, is a strike on the horizon?
Good evening, Gaurav, and good evening to fellow panelists who may be joining later, and happy Lodi and all the other festivals to all your viewers. This type of intervention in other countries as a direct, you can say, carrying two hoods for the international norms and rules and regulations. And these are the indications that we are living in an unequal world.
Yes.
Iran has been a great friend of India, irrespective of which regime, even during Shah's time or even Ayatollah Khomeini's time and even today. We have had very cordial relations with Iran, and our relations go back in history. Now, this type of statements and igniting internal unrest, I think, is a direct intervention in other countries' affairs, which is not a good sign, especially in our neighborhood. So let's see stories unfolding.
But General, let me understand from you. You've assessed Iran's military capabilities. Iran clearly is no Venezuela, and this is not a situation like the way America was able to target Iraq in the Gulf War. At least that time, America moved to get a coalition. It moved through the United Nations. It was able to get other countries on board. Here, America in Venezuela went on its own. It was for oil. It wasn't even to bring democracy, even to claim they wanted to bring democracy. And here, again, a regime change operation in Iran, as some argue. When a president, like the American president says, take over institutions, write names of those who are your abusers, direct meddling in a country's internal affairs, does this also indicate, does it also show that American assets in the region, their bases in Qatar, in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, in Egypt, could they be vulnerable to Iranian missiles?
Gaurav, in this particular region, American presence is all over, as you have already named it. There is a very big player in this whole game called Israel.
Oh, absolutely.
And there is a very big factor in this whole game again against the region, I'm talking about the region, is the Shia-Sunni aspect. Iran being a Shia country and others being the Sunnis, and all these things are very important in this region. And Iranian missiles are very important. But I think before America does anything militarily, they will make sure that those missiles are suppressed, their air defense is suppressed, and their command and control is nullified. That is the way a military strike will go.
Yes.
If they do not nullify the command and control, if they do not suppress the air defense, and if they do not suppress the missile force or the rockets, then I think there's going to be trouble. But any military mind would suggest these three things will have to be done before they go in for any
12-day war, Iran's air defenses were virtually neutralized. Almost every air defense was taken out. The impunity with which the Israeli jets were flying over Iran seemed to indicate that Iran was very vulnerable at that point of time. At least 100 Pakistan Army personnel were killed during Operation Sindur in that fierce fire assault carried out by the Indian Army along the line of control during Operation Sindur. Now, sources had told us this. India Today, we'd reported this in the past, but on sources. Today, Chief of the Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, before the Army Day, announced this to the nation at his annual press conference. He, of course, did not specify the area, but sources had told us that this was the Lipa Valley sector on the LC. There apparently was a change of battalion happening on the other side. So there were a large number of Pakistani soldiers in the open when that battalion changeover was happening. One battalion was coming in, another battalion was leaving. Large number of soldiers out there. That's when India carried out the fire assault. When Pakistan escalated post-operation, post the Pahalgam terror attack, when India hit back. But listen into the army chief. I'll get you more on this story.
कि तकरीबन उन्होंने गलती से एक बार मुझे याद है 13 या 14 अगस्त के आसपास उन्होंने गलती से 150 लोगों की लिस्ट निकाली थी और जिसको हमने एनालाइज किया बाद में उन्होंने उसको वापस पुल आउट कर लिया था। उसमें 100 लोग जो तकरीबन हमारे अंदाज से थे वो तकरीबन लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल में जो फायरिंग हुई थी या IBJN के सेक्टर में जो फायरिंग हुई थी उससे खत्म हुए थे। जहाँ तक आपने फोर्स स्ट्रक्चर की बात की, फोर्स स्ट्रक्चर में मैं सिर्फ आपको यही बताना चाहूँगा कि ड्रोन पहले भी अहम रोल प्ले कर रहा था, लेकिन ऑप सिंदूर के बाद इस चीज़ को पूरा एक मेजर एक्सेलरेशन मिला। क्या हम इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को पहले देख रहे थे? हाँ, हम इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को पहले देख रहे थे। इनको हमने काफ़ी कुछ तक वैलिडेशन किया था, इसको डेजर्ट टेरेन में किया था, हाई एल्टीट्यूड टेरेन में किया था, तो वैलिडेशन चल रहा था। लेकिन चूंकि ऑप सिंदूर ऑन है, इसलिए हमें इसको जल्दबाजी में और जल्द से जल्द हमने इसको कमीशन करना पड़ा, इसको हमने एक शेप देना पड़ा। इसी चीज़ को मद्देनजर रखते हुए हमने क्या कार्रवाई की? अगर हम इन्फेंट्री बटालियन से शुरू करें तो आप देखेंगे ड्रोन पहले क्या होता था, ड्रोन कोई भी उड़ा सकता है, लेकिन अगर आपको ड्रोन का इफेक्टिव इस्तेमाल करना है।
General Dhillon, we had it on sources, but now General Dwivedi has confirmed it on camera that on the basis of that released list that Pakistan withdrew on their Independence Day, but that at least 100 soldiers were killed in India's fire assault. Can you give us details?
Good evening, Gaurav, once again wishing you a happy Lodi and to your viewers who are joining in now. See what General Dwivedi, the Chief of Indian Army Staff, has told today is a dark secret which Pakistan was trying to hide always. And if you recollect on your show, on your podcast, we had discussed this fire assault in Lipa Valley and the Pakistani casualties on the line of control. Now, going back to the facts, And I have given this in my book on Operation Sindur, the thing which I'm going to speak now. On 14th of August 2025, Pakistan Army declared a list of 138 Shaheed, the soldiers who got killed during Operation Sindur, and they suffix those names with Shaheed. That means 138 serving soldiers, officers died during Operation Sindur of the Pakistan Defense Forces or Pakistan Army. And they released this list on Sama TV of Pakistan.
Yes.
And when the whole world started questioning कि आप तो झूठ बोल रहे थे कि no casualties and how come this list, they suddenly pulled it back. But those names and the list and the awards which they were given posthumously are there, very much there. And if
we have that list, we've put it out on India Today. Of course, Pakistan withdrew.
Give me 10 seconds. Give me 10 more
Go on,
seconds.
sir.
If 138 names have been given posthumously the gallantry awards, that would mean the actual casualties would definitely be more than 400. And now coming to the Lipa Valley fire assault, yes. Lipa Valley's fire assault had the maximum casualties of Pakistan Army because 2 battalions were changing over. Troops were out in the open. That is when Indian Army carried out the fire assault. And there is a transmission which was intercepted of the brigade commander. Lipa has a brigade headquarters of Pakistan Army. Yes. Lipa Valley brigade commander interception, file ko chodo, Muzaffarabad bhago. These were the words of the brigadier who was commanding the brigade in Lipa Valley.
Sir, on the day the army chief sounded this warning to Pakistan, when he said, words to the effect कि कायदे में रहो या औकात में रहो, drones मत भेजो, 2 more drones have been spotted in the Rajouri sector. Your assessment of Pakistan sending in drones again and 8 terror camps coming up once again on the other side of the LC and IB on POJK.
Yeah, as the Chief of Army Staff said that 6 terrorist camps across the other side of line of control and 2 other side of the international boundary. And these drones, Pakistan Army, which is sending in are for 2 reasons. One is to check on our deployment and any additionality of equipment or resources we may have put in there. And second is to find out the safe passages for infiltration of terrorists. So Pakistan is back at its games of terrorism in Kashmir and in India. So these are the things which a responsible nation, a responsible neighbor should avoid. Otherwise, as the Army Chief has very clearly told, Operation Sindur is still on and there is no need for taking any clearances if in case we have to retaliate because the operation is going on.
There's another very interesting aspect that the army chief raised, why Pakistan sought a ceasefire, because on satellites they'd seen the movement of the army, the navy on the high seas and the air force. What was he indicating? Perhaps is a conversation left for another day. General Dhillon, for joining me here on India First. Many thanks.